He's
That's
part
his
of the
problem.
personnel committee. He's part of the committee, so.
Yeah, I know.
I am here.
There he
Okay.
is.
Okay. All right. With that, we'll get the personnel committee rolling here also. Haley, can you take roll call?
Alderman Schmidt. Here. Alderman Tom Grady. Alderman
Here.
Tom Grady.
The
Alderman
weather's
Ted
clicking,
Grady.
so.
Alderman Ted Grady.
Here.
Alderman Rapella.
Present.
Alderman Nichols.
Here.
Alderman Taylor.
Here.
Alderman Sevenick.
Here.
Alderman Langdon. Alderman Langdon. Your mic's off.
Here.
Mayor Merkus.
Here.
All are present.
All right, with that, I'll entertain a motion for the minutes to be approved. Alderman Rapella. Nope, your light's off. Alderman Nichols. Alderman Nichols.
I'll move to approve the minutes from January 4th, 2021.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it. I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion by Alderman Nichols and a second by Alderman Tom Grady. Are there any discussions on the minutes? No discussions? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Any opposed, nays? Minutes are approved. We have a couple items for discussion tonight. We'll start with the Director of HR, Captain Attorney. Explain a little bit about the 2021 temporary sick leave.
There.
Can we hear you?
You can hear me good?
Yes.
Can't see you. Okay. Well, if I figure that out, let's see, there it is. There it is. So I prepared a memo, and this has to do with temporary emergency sick leave for COVID-19. You may recall that in 2020, the federal government adopted a Families First Coronavirus Response Act, and that provided for some federal sick leave and some expanded FMLA in the event that someone was unable to work due to specified reasons surrounding or related to COVID-19, and that expired at the end of the year, December 31st, 2020. Now that we're getting into 2021, that leave no longer applies. We will be asking employees to take the vaccinations that would be offered to them, and as an incentive, there was some discussion about the availability of that same type of paid sick leave in the event that an employee who took the vaccination, but yet for some reason still contracted COVID-19, or perhaps the person could be a close contact of someone who contracts COVID-19, and they could, have to miss work and use their sick leave for that. And so what's being proposed is that in the event that someone does take the vaccine and they are going to be missing work due to those reasons of related to COVID-19, that they still would be able to utilize some additional paid leave. And it would only apply to those employees who would take the vaccine, so that if a person did not take the vaccine, then they would be using their own accumulated sick time.
Are there any questions? Alderman Rapella.
Oh, definitely. Attorney Captain, how many extra days would they be receiving?
It would be
Is it unlimited?
No, it would be up to 80 hours. And it depends on if that person is a 40-hour a week employee or 37.5-hour employee. So if you were 30, well, and it would be prorated, let's put it that way, if you were a part-time worker.
So technically, if they're a full-time worker and they get the shot, then they get 2 weeks off after getting the shot.
Not 2 weeks off after getting the shot. That's only if the person does still contract COVID-19 or if the person becomes a close contact of someone.
Okay, all right, 10-4, thank you.
Yeah, right now what happens is even if you take the vaccination, there still is a possibility that a person could contract COVID-19.
What about those, when you get the shot and you come down with the chills or something for a day or two?
That is not proposed, but that also could be included. Yes.
Okay, all right, thank you. I just don't want them to milk it out for, a little bit longer than just a couple days. Thank you.
Sure.
Mayor, do you have something to add?
Attorney Captain, I think that we had talked that this is cumulative since last March as well, correct? It isn't an additional 80 hours, it's 80 hours total for the entire time.
That's not what I put into this memo, no.
Okay, so this is 80 hours starting January 1st then?
Correct.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Sure, I have one. Attorney Captain, then, so how was March covered until December 31st of 2020?
There was the Families First Coronavirus Response Act that was adopted, and so we were required to provide if an employee did contract COVID-19 and they were off, or if they were sick and being tested. There were a number of different reasons. If they were off related to COVID-19, they would get a maximum of 80 hours. And so there were some employees who did use that federal leave.
Mayor?
Thank you very much.
It's not likely, I don't believe, that they would contract it again, if someone already had it, but, there obviously is a possibility.
Yes, thank you.
Mayor, do you have more to add?
I do have one other comment. So the reason that we propose this is because it's very important that we have our staff here. And if people are vaccinated, it's less likely that they're going to become a positive case, that they're going to get sick. So what this should do is encourage people to be vaccinated, which should encourage them to have less time off, which in turn will give better service to our community. So that's why we're encouraging this. We think that this will actually decrease the use of sick time and sick leave from our employees because they won't be getting sick anymore. And we're worried that if we're not encouraging them to get the vaccine, that more employees may not get it, and we would end up with more sickness and spreading that disease throughout City Hall then, or the other areas within the city, and having more people off sick with COVID. So that's why we're planning on doing this, to hopefully have our employees be healthier. Did someone make a motion for it, by the way?
Not yet, no.
No.
Would you like me to make that, Ted?
If you're ready to,
I'd be happy to do that.
go ahead.
I will make a motion to direct the city attorney to prepare a resolution for the next common council meeting to extend emergency sick leave for eligible employees who have taken the vaccination yet become subject to the effect of COVID-19 as explained in the memo dated, I just lost the top, January 13th.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
We do have a motion by
I
the
second
mayor,
it.
and we do have a second by Alderman Tom Grady. Any other further discussion? Alderman Langdon.
Thank you, Chair. So I just want to make sure before I go with that, if a employee decides they don't want to take the shot, then they're not eligible for this, correct?
Correct, yes.
Okay, thank you.
You have a question, Alderman Nichols?
I do. Help me understand how this policy would ensure that everybody gets 2 doses.
I don't,
That- that-
And
is that-
purpose of it,
Well,
Yes,
in order,
sir, what-
If that may be
the-
helpful.
the efficacy of the vaccines that are available depend on 2 doses.
and someone would be required to have, yes, to have 2 doses.
So in
It
other
doesn't-
words, the
1 dose is not effective.
So in other words, the application of this policy would not take effect until the employee receives 2 doses?
Correct.
If that vaccine is a 2-dose vaccine.
Exactly.
And
We
they
might-
all are right now. They all are right now.
Yeah, but by the time this some rolls out,
They all are right now, but Johnson & Johnson is coming out with one that is just a one-time vaccine.
And that depends what the state of Wisconsin receives.
Well, the
There-
Johnson & Johnson one
You
hasn't
can't
even gone.
request a particular vaccination.
Yeah. And we only have 2 vaccines that are approved for emergency use. That's all we have right now.
Yep.
So totally out of the box, but I'm a proponent of paying employees to get the vaccine and paying them after they get their 2nd dose. I'll just let that out there for other people to think about. I would like to offer an amendment to this motion that this policy become effective for employees who have received both doses.
I don't think an amendment is necessary, that they have to be, they have to have in order to be vaccinated, you have to have 2 of them.
well,
You
or
can add
otherwise,
it, but it's not necessary.
otherwise I'll second.
It's our rule. We decide how to enforce it. So somebody can say, oh, I had 1 vaccination, I got 1, so I want the sick leave, and I'd say, no, you have to have 2.
Well, then maybe we just second the motion for the amendment.
Yeah, it's up to you. It doesn't serve a purpose, but it's up
I'll
to you.
second them. I'll second it just so that it's on the record, and then
Yeah,
that way, Pamela, you'll have more, backing.
Dots the i's and crosses the t at least, so.
Thank
Right.
you. I would feel much better if that were in writing and upfront.
Well, there will be a resolution coming. This is just the
Okay.
motion to prepare the resolution. So,
Okay, yeah,
it would be in there.
okay, yeah, put that in there then.
Yeah, add that to that, then we don't have to vote on the amendment then.
That's it.
Alderman
Besides to
Grady?
put it in.
Alderman Grady?
Yes,
I would be opposed to that. The way I understood this happening was you were automatically eligible until you were eligible to get the vaccine. And then once you were eligible, you had to get the vaccine, otherwise you would lose your eligibility. Now, some of our employees aren't going to be eligible until April, May, and then those employees that want to do the right thing are now being punished just because they're not eligible at the state level. That doesn't make a lot of sense. I understand what Alderman Nichols is trying to do, make sure they get the second shot. But if we're going to punish people that the state doesn't allow to get the vaccine yet, that doesn't seem to be a great way to entice employees to stay healthy, which is the whole purpose of this. So I would be opposed to that amendment.
Can I comment, Alderman Grady?
Sure.
Is all that we would be doing is if an employee had used their, had used other leave between now and the time that they're offered it, and then they get the full vaccination, which is 2 shots, that's the full vaccination, then we would just credit the account back, that's all.
I'm okay with that if that's in the resolution.
Okay.
Alderman Nick, oh, I'm sorry, you turned your mic off, so I didn't know if you had another question, Alderman Nichols, or not.
Well, I was just going to say, well, I'm feeling like this is getting very complicated all of a sudden. And that has something to be said for the definition of essential employees, and we should be doing everything we can to advocate that folks get vaccinated as quickly as possible.
I agree.
Alderman Severnick?
All I wanted to say is that now I do agree with the mayor, but originally I didn't when he made the comment. That's like saying you're not depending on the state at all. You're saying we're not going to get a vaccine. And if that's the case, we're all in trouble. But I think Pamela can work the ordinance out the way it needs to be, and we'll see that in 2 weeks, or is it 3? I don't know, but we can decide then. But in the meantime, I think we still support this amendment,
Right.
and move forward and make judgment on the resolution itself. I think we're all in agreement what needs to be done.
I agree. Do we need a roll call board on this, Captain Attorney?
It's up to the chair.
I would feel that we should take one. Haley, can you take a roll call?
Alderman Schmidt,
Aye.
Alderman Tom Grady,
Aye.
Alderman Ted Grady,
Aye.
Alderman Rapella,
Aye.
Alderman Nichols,
Aye.
Alderman Taylor,
Aye.
Alderman Sevenick,
Aye.
Alderman Langdon. Alderman Langdon, you're.
Aye.
Mayor Merkes,
Aye.
motion carries 9-0.
All right. We'll move on to the second topic.
We have to vote the motion as amended.
Oh, I thought we were going to wait until we saw it. Okay. Let's, Alderman, not Alderman, but Clerk, you have the motion as amended?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Take a roll call, please.
Alderman Schmidt,
You guys are confusing me again. What is the amendment on this? Because I thought we squelched the amendment to amend
We were
this
voting
because-
on the amendment.
Okay. So can you read it to me, please, Haley?
so it's the original motion of the recommendation that was in the packet, along with effective for employees who have received both doses is the amendment that was added to the original.
Okay. All right. So for that, I'll say aye.
Alderman Tom Grady,
Aye. It's redundant, but aye.
Alderman Ted Grady,
Aye.
Alderman Rapella,
Aye.
Alderman Nichols,
Aye.
Alderman Taylor,
Aye.
Alderman Sevenick,
Aye.
Alderman Langdon.
Aye.
Mayor Marcus.
Aye.
Motion carries 9-0.
All righty. And the patient, Police Chief Stika, thank you for hanging on all night long. You have some personnel handbook.
Of course, no problem at all.
So go ahead.
So what you have in front of you is Attorney Captain and I had some discussions reference to the contract being done and looking at the police addendum. And there were 3 items that kind of jumped out to us that we wanted to suggest for potential changes. And they're outlined in the memo that you have in the packet. The first one is overtime. Because of the way the lieutenants are basically, we treat them as a salaried employee to a good extent. However, there's some times that in order to do things like have 24/7 police or supervisory coverage, there are times that they do work overtime. And in order to compensate them for those, as well as a few other things, they do get an overtime rate for the times that are outside of their normal work schedule. And because of the way that we transitioned the patrol contract, their overtime rate changed slightly. And we found that the union folks at their top step would actually be making more than the people that are supervising them, which obviously is a little bit problematic. 2 people get called in and one might be directing traffic at a critical incident and the other one's in charge of the critical incident. It doesn't seem that the person directing traffic should be making more than the person in charge of the incident. And back about 6 years ago, the Personnel Committee of the Common Council was very supportive of the compression issues that were existing between the lieutenants and the union staff. And we tried to maintain a difference of 5%, 7.5%, and 10% between the union and the 3 different steps that the supervisory lieutenants have. The reality is that there are some ebbs and flows, as the contract doesn't always equate into a benefit for any of the management group. But the lieutenant group as a whole understands that, and they knows that there are some differences, but this was one that, again, we saw to be problematic. So what the recommendation on the overtime portion is that we would add just a straight $4 an hour rate to the overtime when they do work, to avoid the situation of having a patrol person making more than their supervisor that might be on overtime at the same time with them. The second section that's listed on there is for court appearances, and this actually mirrors the union contract. This is one of the other times that the lieutenants do make overtime, especially because of how they have the varying schedule. It's challenging for a night shift lieutenant, for example, that has to arrange for them childcare or get 2 hours of sleep and have to go to court at 9 o'clock in the morning. So they have historically always received 3 hours of a minimum of 3 hours for any overtime appearance. And that's been kind of a past practice with the lieutenants, and obviously it was a contractual benefit for the union folks. However, in the advent of COVID, we did realize that there was another 2 different options. There's where people could be testifying like we're doing our meeting tonight over the phone or virtually. And then there's times where they might just be on standby for a hearing and not even testify at all. So we don't believe that it's appropriate to pay 3 hours of overtime, a minimum of overtime, if a person's just going to be doing it from home or wherever. So the union benefit, as well as what we're then reflecting in the recommended change for the personnel handbook, with that they would get only 2 hours for that because it's less burdensome than actually going to court. And just as is in the union contract, if they end up having to, either their day off or their sleep time or whatever, be on standby for that court appearance, then we would say that it would only be 1 hour of overtime for the having to be on standby in case they would have to testify. And then the third one that we have on there is a very simple one. The union contract changed where the physical fitness incentive gets paid out, and that was the first paycheck in December. They changed it in the union contract to the first paycheck in November. This really has absolutely no difference to the city one way or the other, but instead of paying out one group at one time and one group out at the other time, we figured we'd bring this change forward as well and just have that incentive being paid out all at the exact same time. So those are kind of the three, unless I missed anything, Pam. If you have anything to add, we can certainly answer any questions.
Are there any questions? Alderman Rapella.
Thank you, Alderman Grady. Tim, I definitely understand your concerns about having the workers getting paid more than their supervisor, and I can feel their pain. But then I also look at Don and his sad eyes, knowing that he should be the highest paid one in City Hall then, because all the supervisors, and we don't have Don being the highest paid person in City Hall or amongst the police and the fire departments. And I feel Don's pain. He must be, so using your philosophy, he should be the highest paid.
Well, no, not, I mean, he's not, we're talking the union contract too, Randy. This is a union versus a government.
Right, but we got to be able to be realistic here. So that's all I have to say, Tim. I understand. My dad was a police officer too. I still think back to the movies that I'd watch, and the generals would say, feed the guys out in the field before you feed me. They're the ones doing the work. I'm just sitting there in the Jeep watching the war go on. That's all I got to say. Thank you.
Alderman Severnick.
Okay, well, Chief, it seems like this is just a reoccurring dream again. We had this problem before, and I'm really struggling with this overtime part. Can you run it through one more time? Because now you're getting away with using a straightforward $4 amount an hour. Help me out here.
Sure.
Can you go through that part one more time for me? Because I don't have it on paper. I'm looking at it on computer here.
Yep.
It's not helping me.
Of course, no problem at all. So what we're finding right now is that based upon the scenario that I gave you, that supervisor that is working alongside that officer that we discussed is making about 65 cents less an hour. To try to maintain that same 5, 7.5, 10% that we had talked about a number of years ago, it actually right now would work out to be $3.61 would be that straight 5% above.
So he's still getting paid more though, isn't he? He's getting paid 65 cents an hour more. So he's still getting paid more.
No, the union person is getting paid 65 cents more than the
supervisor. Not how I read it. So, okay, keep going.
Yep. So the union person's making 65 cents more than the supervisor. If we want to try to maintain that 5% above, it actually works out to $3.61. However, the union contract is 4 years. And instead of complicating the language or switching around the pay rates or having that impact other things that the lieutenants or whomever get paid out for, we thought that this would be the simplest way to do it and just add on that $4, which would take it through the full 4 years of the contract to try to maintain that 5, 7.5, and 10. And actually, with the way that the pay rates work with the union contract, this is actually going to go down, and they will be making less than the 5% above next year. However, in 2022, it would go back to about this slightly a little bit more. And then in 2023, so it kind of ebbs and flows as it would go over the life of the 4 years of the contract.
Don't the lieutenants make more overtime though, period?
Actually, well, it depends. We are not maintaining that 5, 7.5, and 10% as it stands right now. They make less, and it's about 4.8%, and then for each of the tier going up from there.
The last time I got a report on what the lieutenants were making, most of those guys were between $90,000 and $100,000 along with their overtime. That's a lot of money. That is a lot of money. And now we're going to quibble because this guy's making 65 cents less or more. I mean, I understand the philosophy behind it, but I'm just saying These are high salaries. I was blown away when I saw what the top 9 guys are making, including yourself. Those are big salaries. And now feelings are being hurt because somebody's, I don't know. I struggle with this. I really do. I mean, my God, people, they don't know how well they've got it sometimes. You know, the people out there are struggling like you wouldn't believe. In front of my house, I got lines that go all the way from Calder to Highway 47 to pick up some bread and some potatoes and whatever. I just have a hard time with this, Chief. And I don't know. I want this for our employees because I think one thing I love about our police department, I think we're superior compared to other departments around here. But it's got to the point where, you know, there are 4 governors in the United States that actually make less than some of our lieutenants. So these are great salaries, and now we're worried about these kind of things. I don't know. I'm not 100% sold. I think they deserve it, but I look at the people of Menasha. The average salary in the city of Menasha is under $35,000. You're getting 3 times that amount. And the other thing, obviously, you know, what bothers me is no one has taken the initiative to live in our own city, but they're willing to take that payroll check. So I'm sorry I had a vent, but it had to come out because here, the other members haven't experienced this like I have. It seems like this keeps coming up over and over again. And you did bring that up, that I didn't realize it was 6 years ago, but I mean, that was a huge change. And I thought by doing what we did, we would be all caught up and that we wouldn't be in this situation again. And now we are.
Well,
So,
and I understand, and that's certainly something that, because of the pay and benefits that do change in the union contract, and the pay rates have not stayed consistent with all the non-rep employees across the city compared to what both police and fire have received, that inevitably you're going to have that impact. But I understand. I totally get where you're coming from on it. But I also have to look at organizationally, how do you get people interested in becoming lieutenants if they're going to make less, taking on more responsibility and having more things that they have to do, yet the people that they would be supervising make more than them. I'm not sure how I can make that argument to them, because we're really basing off of the agreement with the union. And what we know from the union contract is that those rates are very fair, but they're also very comparable to what other municipalities are paying for police officers. And what we're seeing now is, look in the headlines. It is extremely challenging to get police officers and people to come into this career field. And I can see where you're going to be, as a municipality, we might have to be paying even more because people don't want to do this. You know, we again had a guy for the 5th time try to get us to shoot him tonight in Hart Park. And yet our officers with an edged weapon de-escalated the situation and talked him down. At some point, our cops are going to be sitting here saying, is this worth it? Do we want to be the next Kenosha if we had shot this guy tonight? We don't want to be in that position. So I know I'm getting off topic, and I apologize.
no, in fact, this, by saying what you just said to me, that helps me. That helps me.
Anything else, Dan?
True, because I'm telling you, when I know that when you went through the interview process in the past, you'd have like 300 candidates, and you do your testing, and you're not even close to that anymore.
Unfortunately, no, you're right.
And then you'd go through all 200 or so, and then not choose any of them. So, alrighty. Sorry, I had a vent, but you got to realize I represent the people in my district. They're hurting. And we just keep adding and helping our employees that I know. If I thought there was someone who wasn't a good employee for the city, I'd say it. You know that. And my council
do.
members know that.
I agree. I truly wish we were back to the days of getting 200 applicants and that the supply and demand would be different. You're right on. And I know, Stan, you have been very supportive of what we've been doing for the last several years, and we certainly appreciate that. So I'm with you. I see both sides of the coin here.
Anything else?
Maybe it's this year or something, but I physically am seeing a lot of struggle out there. And when I see petty things, I mean, James and I were down this before with where James would do something great for the community, and then all of a sudden a grievance is filed on him. It got ridiculous, and I don't want to go down that road either anymore. But I'll tell you, people are hurting out there.
Okay, we do have 4 other aldermen that have some questions, so I appreciate the input, Alderman Severnick. I'm going to go around the horn here, and I think, Mayor, your light's been on the longest. You have a comment?
I guess I first wanted to comment back to Alderman Rapello's remarks, and I'm perfectly happy with the salary I'm making. I don't think there's a need to be changing that, but I think a good number of ride-alongs with the police department over the years, and they have an extremely difficult job, both the management and the officers. I've been on some ride-alongs where there have been fights. I've been along on a night that there was a robbery, domestics. This is a really difficult job, and we need to recruit the best, as the chief was saying. We want our officers to be trained in de-escalation. We want these situations to have happy endings. We want to arrest bad people, but we also want to fix problems. And this shouldn't be how cheap can we get someone. We need the absolute best that we can get, and I think we've done a really good job getting really good officers. It's when those ride-alongs, we've been on some nights that there's been almost nothing happening, but there's been other nights that we never stopped the entire night. So I'm very supportive of what our officers do, and I do really appreciate what they're doing and think this is appropriate to make sure that we do promote people and promote good people into those management spots. And if we don't pay them and do this correctly, we're not going to have those good people go into those management positions. So I'm very much in favor of this.
Thank you. Alderman Rapella.
Thank you. I just want to shed a positive light. There's a police officer who lives out by Lake Park Fitness. So kudos to him. Thank you.
Alderman Taylor.
Thank you, Chairman. I think after last Wednesday, the chief's going to have less applicants as the situations in this country present themselves to us. I think this is fair and equitable. I was in union negotiations for 43 years, and anytime it was always about responsibility. And when you had more responsibility, you got paid more. And the company, they also looked at their supervisors to make sure that they were staying above the workers, the union workers. I had 2 uncles that were Chicago police officers, and staying at their house a lot of times. Anytime you got to strap a gun on the side of you, you deserve everything. And this is as the chief said, we're going to probably get less and less. And anytime you got to strap a gun on, and we see weekly situations throughout the country where you got to have somebody that has the right character and the right mindset in these very fast acting situations that ramp up extremely fast. And for that, we're going to have to pay the price and pay some really good wages for these positions. So I'm in favor of this 100%. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Alderman Langdon.
Thank you, Chair. So Tim, could you, well, let me first say, Randy, back in the day, your dad, I guarantee he never had to wear a bulletproof vest back then. That's a guarantee.
They weren't invented by then.
Well, this is where I'm going with it. And there was less people around. There's probably what, 50 times more, because every year there's more people, more babies born, everything grows. So Tim, how long has it been since you guys had to wear? Let me ask LT Schultz. Well, no, Tim, you've been around longer. How many years has it been now that you've had to wear the bulletproof vest?
I don't know if this is relevant to what we're trying to talk about tonight, but go ahead, Tim, you can answer that.
Sure.
Gotta turn his mic on.
You're muted, Tim.
You're muted, Tim.
My apologies. I don't know how I double clutched there. 25 years ago when I started, you actually had to buy your own. Then we had actually one of the forethoughts that Common Council and some of you were on the council at that point actually had it as part of the union contract to give it an incentive to people to wear their body armor. And that's incentive is actually would change to the next thing, which you folks are very forethought on is the physical fitness incentive. When I became chief, I actually mandated it at that point. So it's been about 10 years now that we've required people to wear their body armor.
And that's so they will not die. So I especially the police and fire, I always see the money that they make. I don't have an issue with it, especially today when the crime rate is up and they have to wear bulletproof vest. The salary is okay with me. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Nichols.
Thank you. Before I move ahead, Attorney Captain had something she was raising her hand about before, and I just would you like to give her the opportunity before I speak?
Sure, I didn't see her hand. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Captain, go ahead.
That's okay. I was just going to clarify that these issues are not brought up by the employees. They're actually brought up by Chief Styka and myself, just to clarify.
Okay, thank you. Alderman Nichols?
Thank you. I think it's important for our police department to maintain and continue to build upon the professionalism that is present in the department right now. Chief Styka, could you address the fiscal impact to these changes?
Sure. I'm not 100% sure because it truly depends upon the amount of overtime and that can be based upon things. But looking at the last couple of years of the overtime that the folks have worked, I'm estimating it to be somewhere between $2,000 to $4,000 overall. And again, that can vary based upon the vacancies that we happen to have. Someone goes out on family leave or whatnot, that can change that number.
Okay, thank you. With that, I'm prepared to make the motion to approve and forward to Common Council the recommended revisions to Appendix O, the police addendum as outlined in the memo, to add $4 per hour to the overtime rate for supervisory lieutenants, to modify the minimum hours for court time for supervisory lieutenants, and change the payout date for the physical fitness incentive to November.
I'll second that.
We do have a motion by Alderman Nichols. We do have a second by Alderman Taylor. Any other discussion? Alderman Severnick.
Thank you. Oh, Chief, you moved on the screen. As far as overtime generally, I don't have the spreadsheet, but I had a spreadsheet from 2 years ago. Roughly, what percent overtime do lieutenants earn comparable to their own salary? It was quite high, and I'm wondering why that is. Why we use so much overtime for our lieutenants, and I know what your answer is going to be, but
Yeah, I'm trying to do the quick, well, so what you're referring to, probably from a couple of years ago, we had 2 lieutenants that, because of the way the retirement system is built, as you folks probably know, it's based upon your top 3 years of employment. That's what you end up getting your benefit for when you retire. We had 2 people who are no longer with the department who have retired over the last 5 years that made a very conscious effort to work as much overtime as possible. Those are the ones that you saw the very disproportionate amount, well over $100,000, I think, in some cases. That was agreeing, and we're making more than virtually pretty much anyone else in the department. So literally, when there would be an opening, let's say for, if there were 3 day shift openings on the days off, they would take all 3 of them and sign for those. What we have seen with our younger lieutenants and the ones that we currently have is right now there's no one that's really anywhere near that motivated. So they kind of spread the wealth amongst themselves. I shouldn't say spread the wealth because no one really wants to be there additional time.
Well, and I do recall there was one that didn't want any overtime.
Exactly.
Because
so
of family obligations. They had priorities. They had other priorities, which is commendable.
Exactly. So to say how much, I guess it really depends upon the employee themselves. And we kind of see that pot really now with our folks being spread a little more equally because they do it to help out more than they really do it to pad their own pocketbook. We truly don't have anyone that currently are in the supervisory staff that are doing it to get rich, so to speak. But on the flip side to it is, like you had mentioned, when they are working that additional overtime, they don't have that additional family time. And I think you really need to have that appropriate work-life balance.
I don't know if Jennifer's still on, but I think I'm going to need a new spreadsheet on that. Oh, yeah, Jennifer's still there. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, we can work with you on that.
Is there any further discussion? Haley, let's take a roll call.
Alderman Schmidt,
Aye.
Alderman Tom Grady,
Aye.
Alderman Ted Grady,
Aye.
Alderman Rapella,
Aye.
Alderman Nichols,
Aye.
Alderman Taylor,
Aye.
Alderman Sevenick,
Aye.
Alderman Langdon.
Aye.
Mayor Merkus.
Aye.
Motion carries 9-0.
All right. With that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Alderman Rapella.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you. A motion to adjourn by Alderman Rovella. Yes.
Motion. I think Alderman Taylor beat you. You can second it if you want.
I'll second it.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed?
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Okay. No opposed. We are adjourned. Have a good
Stay
day.
safe.
Be safe out there, guys.